Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radhe Govinda Dev Ki Jai. Kali Yuga Dharma Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Jai Radhe Govinda, welcome. Hare Krishna. Good to see all of you again. Tonight is going to be another night filled with adventures. Always going on ever fresh new pastimes with our best friend. Today's is going to be quite nice. Once again, around these political times, there tends to be a lot of tension in the air and a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress, and there are people who are really triggered and upset emotionally, mentally by so much that goes on in the world. So, I enjoy having these days, which I find are extremely important for us to come together and really just concentrate on something greater than what is happening right now, something bigger than ourselves, something more powerful than the political atmosphere, the emotional atmosphere, someone greater than all of that. And my firm conviction is that the person who is greater than all of that is Krishna. And having the chance to be with all of you helps me to set my mind and heart at ease. So I hope that it helps you set your mind and your heart at ease as well. Every time I think, I'm a little bit tired, or I second guess what I want to read or when or how or whatever the case is, I feel like Krishna gives me a directive that, no, today's the right day. We must read. We must come together. We have to discuss these pastimes. This is our protection. This is our shelter. This is our safe place. We are always looking for a place that is like home. This is our home. So I'm happy to be with all of you. And tonight's story is a little bit longer, and I want to make sure that we get through all of it. So, of course, we are going to set the right intention by singing Jai Radha Madhava, bringing our minds to the glorious realm of Sri Vrindavan Dham, hoping and praying for it to appear in our midst, and along with it, our best friend and all of his associates. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jannavalabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Radhe Govinda Jaya Radhe Govinda Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Radha Govinda Dev Ki Jai Shri Radha Sham Sundar Ki Jai Shri Radha Kunj Bihari Ki Jai. So, I hope that now we are in the right mindset to begin. Because this is Purushottam Mas, and I did promise more weddings, this evening's story is going to be a marriage story. I love a good wedding, and I love it when Krishna orchestrates things for a good wedding. Nobody orchestrates things better than my Govinda. Nobody makes miracles like my Govinda. So this is a story to give hope and inspiration and solace to the heart and knowledge that Krishna will be there for all of us. This story comes from Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. And it is a story which is narrated to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu by Lord Nityananda himself. Before they met up with each other, Lord Nityananda spent 12 years on pilgrimage to all the holy places throughout India. And as he came to one such place, he excitedly told Lord Chaitanya that he knew all about the stories of that area. And he began enthusiastically to narrate this particular story to Lord Chaitanya. So I hope that we're all ready to go on this journey together. This story begins. Formerly, at Vidyanagar in South India, there were two Brahmanas who made a long tour to see different places of pilgrimage. First of all, they visited Gaya, then Kashi, then Prayag, Finally, with pleasure, they came to Mathura. After reaching Mathura, they started visiting the different forests of Vrindavan and came to Govardhan Hill. They visited all 12 forests, vanas, and at last came to the town of Vrindavan. In the village of Panchakroshi Vrindavan, at the site where the Govinda temple is now situated, there was a great temple where gorgeous worship of Gopal was performed. After taking baths at different bathing places along the river Jamuna, such as Keshigat and Kaliyaghat, the pilgrims visited that temple of Gopal. Afterwards, they took rest in that temple. The beauty of the Gopal deity stole away their minds, and feeling great happiness, they remained there for 2 or 4 days. One of the 2 Brahmins was an old man, and the other was young. The young man was assisting the old one. Indeed, the young Brahmana always rendered service to the older one, and the old man, being very satisfied with his service, was pleased with him. The older man told the younger, "You have rendered various types of service to me. You have assisted me in traveling to all these places of pilgrimage. Even my own son does not render such service. By your mercy, I did not become fatigued while on this tour. If I did not show you any respect, I would be ungrateful. Therefore, I promise to give you my daughter in charity." The younger Brahmin replied, "My dear sir, please hear me. You are saying something very unusual. Such a thing never happens. You are a most aristocratic family man, well educated and very rich. I am not at all aristocratic, and I am without a decent education, and I have no wealth. Sir, I am not a suitable bridegroom for your daughter. I render service to you only for the satisfaction of Krishna. Lord Krishna is very much pleased by service rendered to Brahmanas, and when the Lord is pleased, the opulence of one's devotional service increases." We heard about this wealth of devotional service. It is our greatest treasure. And so we see how making other Vaishnavas happy can increase our wealth and abundance. The older Brahmin replied, "My dear boy, do not doubt me. I will give you my daughter in charity. I have already decided this." The young Brahmana said, "You have a wife and sons, and you have a large circle of relatives and friends. Without the consent of all your friends and relatives, it is not possible to give me your daughter in charity. Just consider the story of Queen Rukmini and her father Bhishmak. King Bhishmak wanted to give his daughter Rukmini in charity to Krishna, but Rukmi, his elder son, objected. Therefore, he could not carry out his decision. The elderly Brahman said, 'My daughter is my own property. If I choose to give my property to someone, who has the power to stop me?' In some ways, some Vaishnavacharyas say that Krishna abducted Rukmini on her request just to show the significance of how a daughter is still not exactly the property of those around her, how she has her own mind and her own will, and if she desires to give her mind, body, will, words, everything to Sri Krishna, Sri Krishna will always arrange for that to happen. So it's very interesting how the elderly Brahmin is saying that my daughter is my property. If I choose to give my property to someone, who has the power to stop me? We'll see what happens. My dear boy, I will give my daughter to you in charity, and I will neglect the position of all others. Don't doubt me in this regard. Just accept my proposal. The young Brahmin replied, If you have decided to give your young daughter to me, then say so before the Gopal deity. Coming before Gopal, the elderly Brahmin said, My dear Lord, please witness that I have given my daughter to this boy. Then the younger Brahmin addressed the deity, saying, My dear Lord, you are my witness. I shall call for you to testify, if it is necessary, later on." After these talks, the two brahmanas started for home. As usual, the young Brahmin accompanied the elderly Brahmin as if the older Brahmin were a guru or spiritual master, and rendered him service in many various ways. After returning to Vidyanagar, each Brahmana went to their respective home. After some time, the elderly Brahmin became very anxious. He began to think, "I have given my word to a Brahmana in a holy place, and what I promised will certainly come to pass. I must now disclose this to my wife, sons, other relatives, and friends." Thus, one day, the elderly Brahmin called for a meeting of all his relatives and friends, and before them all, he narrated what had taken place in front of Gopal. When those who belonged to the family's circle heard the narration of the old Brahman, they made exclamations showing their disappointment. They all requested that he not make such a proposal again. They unanimously agreed, "If you offer your daughter to a degraded family, your aristocracy will be lost. When people hear of this, they will make jokes and laugh at you." The elderly Brahmin said, "How can I undo the promise I made in a holy place while on pilgrimage? Whatever may happen, I must give him my daughter in charity." Interestingly enough, one of the most auspicious things that one can do is to give their daughter in charity to a suitable person. And why do they call it charity like this? The daughter is seen as the future of the civilization, the keeper of honor, the Lakshmi of a family. And so just as we would give Lakshmi in charity, the symbol of the honor of a daughter is just as potent. It says that within the parting of the hair of a chaste woman, all of the potency of all the demigods reside. So we can just see how potent it is, how powerful integrity and character was seen, and still is. So my Guru Maharaj always says, if we live, and he says this to anyone, if we live with integrity and character, that is the best preaching, and all of Krishna's blessings are available to us. So this is why it is considered to be one of the best things you can do, to give a very beautifully chaste daughter in charity to a very suitable person. So not necessarily for money, not looking at just, what will be the best for my monetary situation, but looking at how the couple will progress in their lives. And this is why sometimes the negotiations between a wedding would take a very long time. These negotiations were not really haphazardly done. Not only would the parents consult each other, they would consult astrologers. In the case of the wedding of Srinivas, they consulted sages and the gods themselves to make sure that each party was suitable and made for each other. So even though a lot of this may be lost today, I like to live in an idealistic, imaginary world where Krishna is somehow, some way, playing matchmaker for all of us. He's sitting, moving us like chess pieces in his very own game of love and devotional service, setting us up with the people in our lives that we can see as extensions of his mercy, as representatives of Krishna's presence and blessings in our lives. And in this way, we can see our families as our pathways to our spiritual advancement. These can be the Vaishnavas that surround us. These can be the instruments of Krishna's mercy and love for us. So whenever I hear these stories, I think about the integrity and the character and the strong discipline and morals that were exhibited in previous ages, in previous times. And sometimes it feels impossible to relive and bring all of those back. But with devotion and love for Krishna, we can do anything. If we start there, just like the cowherd boys were able to give advice to the Brahmanas, because they had Krishna's association, they knew all the Vedic injunctions. If we stay true to our path of loving devotional service to Krishna, all integrity, character, virtues, morals will surely come to reside within us, automatically, just because we will be in constant association with Radhe Govinda. So, the older Brahman is in a bit of a quandary. The relatives unanimously said, "If you give your daughter to that boy, we shall give up all connection with you." Indeed, his wife and sons declared, "If such a thing happens, we shall take poison and die." We often see in movies, and sometimes in our own lives. Sometimes we see people pick a person, and then the family says, "Oh no, you can't be with this person. If you do this, we'll cut you off, we'll disown you. We won't hear of it. We'd rather take poison and die. We'd rather curse your existence than allow you to be with this person." And here the Brahmin is saying, "But I made a sacred promise, a sacred pact." Let's see what happens. The elderly Brahmin said, "If I do not give my daughter to the young Brahmin, he will call Sri Gopalji as a witness. Thus he will take my daughter by force, and in that case my religious principles will become meaningless." His son replied, "The deity may be a witness, but he is in a distant country. How can he come to bear witness against you? Why are you so anxious over this? You do not have to flatly deny that you spoke such a thing. There is no need to make a false statement. Simply say that you do not remember what was said. If you simply say, 'I do not remember,' I shall take care of the rest. By argument, I shall defeat the young Brahmana." When the elderly Brahmin heard this, his mind became very much agitated. Feeling helpless, he simply turned his attention to the lotus feet of Gopal. The elderly Brahmin prayed, "My dear Gopal, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, and therefore I request you to please protect my religious principles from disturbance, and at the same time save my kinsman from dying." This is indicative of what we can do when we are in turmoil, when our minds are in anxiety, when our hearts feel like we have nowhere else to turn. This is our path. This is our process. His mind became very much agitated. Feeling helpless, he simply turned his attention to the lotus feet of Gopal. The Lord in Bhagavad Gita says, "Seated within the heart, I am the witness. I am the very dear friend." So the Lord is always bearing witness to us and our activities. If we feel helpless, all we have to do is turn our attention to the lotus feet of the Lord. And we can also pray, "My dear Lord, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, and therefore I request you to please protect my religious principles from disturbance, and at the same time save my kinsman from dying." We can even adapt this prayer to whatever situation arises in our lives. But our prayer should always be, "Please protect my religious principles, protect my service to you, protect my love for you, and at the same time, somehow, make everyone else happy as well." The next day, the elderly Brahmana was thinking deeply about this matter when the young Brahmin came to his house. The young Brahmin came to him and offered respectful obeisances. Then, very humbly folding his hands, he spoke as follows, You have promised to give your daughter in charity to me. Now you do not say anything. What is your conclusion?" So we are to understand that the elderly Brahmin did not even greet him properly. And so the young Brahmin could immediately understand that something was wrong. After the young Brahmin submitted his statement, the elderly Brahmin remained silent. Taking this opportunity, his son immediately came out with a stick to strike the younger man. The son said, "Oh, you are most degraded. You want to marry my sister, just like a dwarf who wants to catch the moon." Seeing a stick in the hand of the son, the younger Brahmana fled. The next day, however, he gathered together all the people of the village, calling a panchayat meeting. All of the people of the village then called for the elderly Brahmana and brought him to their meeting place. The young Brahmana then began to speak to them as follows. "This gentleman has promised to hand over his daughter to me, yet now he does not follow his promise. Please ask him about his behavior." All the people gathered there asked the elderly Brahmin, "If you have already promised to give him your daughter in charity, why are you not fulfilling your promise? You have given your word of honor." The elderly Brahmin said, "My dear friends, please hear what I have to submit. I do not exactly remember making a promise like that." When the elderly Brahmin's son heard this, he took the opportunity to juggle some words. Becoming very impudent, he stood before the assembly and spoke as follows. "While touring various holy places of pilgrimage, my father carried much money. Seeing the money, this rogue decided to take it away. There was no one besides this man with my father. Giving him an intoxicant known as dhutura to eat, this rogue made my father mad. Having taken all my father's money, this rogue claimed that it was taken by some thief. Now he is claiming that my father has promised to give him his daughter in charity. All of you assembled here are gentlemen. Please judge whether it is befitting to offer this poor Brahmana my father's daughter." Hearing all these statements, all the people gathered there became a little doubtful. They thought it quite possible that because of attraction for riches, one might give up his religious principles. At that time, the young Brahmin said, "My dear gentlemen, please hear. Just to gain victory in an argument, this man is lying. Being very satisfied with my service, this Brahmin said to me of his own accord, 'I promise to hand over my daughter to you.' At that time I forbade him to do this, telling him, 'O best of the Brahmanas, I am not a fit husband for your daughter. Whereas you are a learned scholar, a rich man belonging to an aristocratic family, I am a poor man, uneducated, and with no claim to aristocracy.' Still, this Brahmin insisted. Again and again he asked me to accept his proposal, saying, 'I have given you my daughter, please accept her.' I then said, 'Please hear. You are a learned Brahmin. Your wife, friends, and relatives will never agree to this proposal. My dear sir, you will not be able to fulfill your promise. Your promise will be broken.' Yet again and again the Brahmin emphasized his promise. 'I have offered you my daughter. Do not hesitate. She is my daughter, and I shall give her to you. Who can forbid me? At that time, I concentrated my mind and requested the Brahmin to make the promise before the Gopal deity. Then this gentleman said in front of the Gopal deity, 'My dear Lord, please bear witness. I have offered my daughter to this Brahmin in charity.' Accepting the Gopal deity as my witness, I then submitted the following at his lotus feet. 'If this Brahmin later hesitates to give me his daughter, my dear Lord, I shall call on you as a witness. Please note this with care and attention. Thus I have called upon a great personality in this transaction. I have asked the Supreme Godhead to be my witness. The entire world accepts the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.' Taking this opportunity, the elderly Brahmin immediately confirmed that this was really true. He said, 'If Gopal personally comes here to serve as a witness, I shall surely give my daughter to the young Brahmin.' In this regard, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, the elderly Brahman's son immediately confirmed this, saying, yes, this is a very nice settlement. As the supersoul within the hearts of all living entities, Krishna knows everyone's desire, everyone's request, and everyone's prayer. Although all these may be contradictory, the Lord has to create a situation in which everyone will be pleased. This is an instance of a marriage negotiation between an elderly Brahmin and a youthful one. The elderly Brahmin was certainly willing to give his daughter in charity to the young Brahmin, but his sons and relatives became impediments to this transaction. The elderly Brahmin considered how to get out of this situation and still offer his daughter to the young Brahmin. His son, an atheist and a very cunning fellow, was thinking of how to stop the marriage. The father and son were thinking in a contradictory way, yet Krishna created a situation wherein they agreed. They both agreed that if the Gopal deity would come and serve as a witness, the daughter would be given to the young Brahmana. This is so valuable for all of us. As the supersoul within the heart of all living entities, Krishna knows everyone's desire, everyone's request, and everyone's prayer. Although all these may be contradictory, the Lord has to create a situation in which everyone will be pleased. Please know that Krishna is answering your prayers. He will always answer your prayers. Sometimes he must create a situation wherein everyone is pleased, but he is, and he always will, answer your prayers. Know that he knows your prayers, seated within the heart, but still, tell him anyway. Write it to him. Tell him. Pray about it. Chant about it. And know that he will answer your prayers. Expect his mercy, because it is coming. The atheistic son thought, it is not possible for Gopal to come and bear witness. Thinking thus, the father and son agreed. The young Brahmin took this opportunity to speak. Please write this down on paper in black and white so that you may not again change your word of honor. All the assembled people got this statement down in black and white, and taking the signatures of agreement from both of them, served as mediators. There's a very beautiful section of an engagement ceremony where they write down the date of the intended wedding of the two betrothed parties. And they write down the parents' names, the grandparents' names, the betrothed's names, and then they give it to everyone to sign. And this reminds me of this process right here. With everyone serving as mediators, with everyone looking at the paper in black and white, so that later on, nobody can say, oh, I didn't know this was happening. The young Brahmin then said, will all you gentlemen please hear me? This elderly Brahmin is certainly truthful and is following religious principles. He had no desire to break his promise, but fearing that his kinsman would commit suicide, he deviated from the truth. By the piety of the elderly Brahmin, I shall call the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a witness. Thus, I shall keep his truthful promise intact. I appreciate that statement so much. The young Brahmin was not angry, or vindictive, or resentful. Even though the son of the elderly Brahmin wanted to beat him with a stick, brought him in front of all these people, tried to defame him, tried to discredit him, the young Brahmin had the wherewithal and the sober-mindedness. He was so steady, and his heart was so understanding, humble, and compassionate, that he doesn't say, oh, this elderly Brahmin is a nuisance, he's a nonsense, just look at what he's done. One moment he's promising me one thing, and the next he's taking it away. Of course, the young Brahmin already knew that this would happen. He knew that the family would not agree. And then he extends his understanding and his compassion and his humility, saying, this elderly Brahmin is certainly truthful and is following religious principles. He had no desire to break his promise, but fearing that his kinsman would commit suicide, he deviated from the truth. He already understood. And in understanding, he gave all respect still to the elderly Brahmin, even after having this injustice done upon him. It's quite amazing. One of my friends is saying, I also want to be so sober-minded. Tips, please. I wish I had tips. I know my own mind can get the better of me. So I'm not sure that I could give all the tips to become so sober-minded. I'm still working on it myself. I'm trying. But I know that if we fix our minds on the lotus feet of our Gopal, our Govinda, our Madhava, our Sham Sundar, slowly but surely, all those qualities will come. And sometimes we know when a thing seems too good to be true, and we know when people are struggling. So we stay in the association of great devotees. We stay in the association of each other, people who can remind us and say, why don't we look at it from a different point of view? Understanding that sometimes people are also going through tough decisions, tough times. Doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. My Guru Maharaj gave a lecture once, and he was saying sometimes we can fall under injustice. We can become defamed and discredited. We can become under the scrutiny of others. We can become gossiped about. And that hurts. It absolutely does hurt. When Krishna was called a murderer within Dwarka, it hurt. But still, he was willing to solve the issue. And he still didn't say anything bad about Satyajit, who called him the murderer. So here we see that by associating with Krishna, we come in contact with all of those good qualities. Hearing the emphatic statement of the younger Brahmin, some atheists in the meeting began to cut jokes. However, someone else said, after all, the Lord is merciful, and if he likes, he can come. So they didn't even believe him, that he would be able to bring the Lord there to bear witness. So not only was he now being mocked because people were thinking, oh, he's just a thief, he's after money. But then when he says, I will bring the Lord, then they mock him thinking, he can't bring the Lord here. What power does he have? Sometimes we feel as though we are questioned. There are people who would like to become obstacles to our devotional service that would immediately like to think, what power do you have to communicate with Krishna? What power do you have to think that he will hear your prayers? Let this story be a lesson for all of us. Krishna is seated within everyone's heart, every single heart. So not just the humans, every single heart. He is hearing every single prayer and he is reciprocating. So you have that right. Krishna is yours. He never left you. It is just about us reclaiming that relationship. Krishna is yours. His mercy is yours. His blessings are yours. Simply reclaim it. Just look back at that relationship and give yourself to it. Srila Prabhupada guarantees Krishna is ready to speak with you. You just make yourself ready to hear him. So what power do you have? What authority do you have to speak with Krishna? You have Srila Prabhupada's authority. You have Krishna's own authority, who says, from him come all remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Seated within the heart, he is directing the wanderings of all living entities. You have the rights. You have the power. All we have to do is believe fully. Put full conviction in what this pastime is telling us. After the meeting, the young Brahman started for Vrindavan. Upon arriving there, he first offered his respectful obeisances to the deity and then narrated everything in full detail. So that yatra that they were on together took some months. Now this Brahman has to walk all the way there again. He said, "My lord, you are the protector of Brahminical culture, and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your great mercy by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmanas. My dear Lord, I am not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I am simply thinking that the Brahmana has broken his promise, and that is giving me great pain." The young Brahmin continued, "My dear sir, you are very merciful and you know everything. Therefore, kindly be a witness in this case. A person who knows things as they are and still does not bear witness becomes involved in sinful activities." So we see that the young Brahmin did not just desire this wife. In fact, he, from the very beginning, said, "This is a bad idea. I am not a good choice for you and your family. You shouldn't do this." But now, because the elderly Brahmin had made this very serious promise in the presence of the deity, in the presence of Sri Gopal himself, on holy pilgrimage, in a holy place, he did not want that the weight of the sinful activities of breaking that promise would come upon the Brahmin. So he's saying, in order to save us all, my Lord, you must do something. Otherwise, who knows what will happen under the weight of this karmic reaction? The Lord replied, "My dear Brahmin, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me." The Brahmin arrived there. He began speaking heartfelt prayers to the deity. And then the deity responded, "Please know that this is possible. Believe it with all your heart. It is possible. When we go before the deity and we are praying, know for certain that his answer is coming." Sometimes his answer is not always what we want to hear, but his answer is coming. So the Lord replied, "Go back to your home, call a meeting. In that meeting, just try to remember me. I shall certainly appear there, and at that time I shall protect the honor of both you Brahmins by bearing witness to the promise." The young Brahmin replied, "My dear sir, even if you appear there as four-handed Vishnu, still none of the people will believe in your words. Only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people." Lord Krishna said, "I've never heard of a deity's walking from one place to another." And the Brahmin said, "My dear Lord, you are not a statue. You are directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Now, for the sake of the old Brahman, you can do something you have never done before." In essence, the deity says, "I've never heard of a deity walking." And the Brahmin says, "If you can talk, you can walk. You're talking to me right now. You can follow. You can do anything." Sri Gopalji then smiled and said, "My dear Brahmin, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way, I shall go with you." So again, we see Someone is in great distress, right? And the Lord is going to fix the problem. What does he do first? He smiles. Sri Gopalji then smiled and said, "My dear Brahman, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you." The Lord continued, "Do not try to see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. You will know that I am walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells." How sweet. Can we just imagine the continuous sound of Krishna's anklets? Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and follow behind you. The next day, the Brahman begged permission from Gopal and started for his country. Gopal followed him step by step. While Gopal followed the young Brahman, the tinkling sound of his ankle bells could be heard. The Brahman became very pleased, and he cooked first-class rice for Gopal to eat. The young Brahman walked and walked in this way until he eventually arrived in his own country. When he neared his own village, he began to think as follows: "I have now come to my village, and I shall go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived." The Brahmin then began to think that if people didn't directly see the Gopal deity, they would not believe that he had arrived. But even if Gopal stays here, he thought, there is still nothing to fear. Thinking this, the Brahmin turned to look back, and he saw that Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was standing there, smiling. The Lord told the Brahman, "Now you can go home. I shall stay here, and I will not leave." The young Brahman then went to the town and informed all the people about Gopal's arrival. Hearing this, the people were struck with wonder. All the townspeople went to see the witness Gopal, and when they saw the Lord actually standing there, they all offered their respectful obeisances. When the people arrived, they were very pleased to see the beauty of Gopal, and when they heard that he had actually walked there, they were all surprised. Then the elderly Brahman, being very pleased, came forward and immediately fell like a stick in front of Gopal. Thus, in the presence of all the townspeople, Lord Gopal bore witness that the elderly Brahman had offered his daughter in charity to the young Brahman. After the marriage ceremony was performed, the Lord informed both Brahmanas, "You two Brahmanas are my eternal servants, birth after birth." The Lord continued, "I have become very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both. Now you can ask for a benediction." Thus, with great pleasure, the two Brahmanas begged for a benediction. The Brahman said, "Please remain here, so that people all over the world will know how merciful you are to your servants." Lord Gopal stayed, and the two Brahmanas engaged in his service. After hearing of the incident, many people from many different countries began to come to see Gopal. Eventually, the king of that country heard this wonderful story, and he also came to see Gopal, and thus became very satisfied. The king constructed a nice temple, and regular service was executed. Gopal became very famous under the name of Sakshi Gopal, the witness. Thus, Sakshi Gopal stayed in Vidyanagar and accepted service for a very long time. Later on, this deity was later served by King Purushottam Dev, the king of Puri. Find it very interesting that King Purushottam Dev factors into this story during the month of Purushottam. And there's a story about the queen. She had a very valuable pearl which she wore in her nose, and she wished to give it to Gopal. And then she began to think as follows: if there were a hole in the deity's nose, I could transfer the pearl to him. Considering this, the queen offered her obeisances to Gopal and returned to her palace. That night, she dreamed that Gopal appeared and began to speak to her as follows: during my childhood, my mother made a hole in my nose and with great endeavor set a pearl there. That very hole is still there, and you can use it to set the pearl you desired to give me. Seeing this, both the king and the queen went, and they offered the pearl to the deity. Here we go. I had to make sure that we got to the one of the best parts of this chapter. The glories of Lord Gopal, who is very merciful to Brahmins, are very great. The narration of Shakshi Gopal was spoken by Nityananda Prabhu and heard by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Ready? One who hears this narration of Lord Gopal with faith and love very soon attains the lotus feet of Lord Gopal. One more time. One who hears this narration of Lord Gopal with faith and love very soon attains the lotus feet of Lord Gopal. Shri Shakshi Gopal ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. So this is our prayer. This is our hope. Oh, my dear Lord, please bear witness to all of the hopes and dreams within my heart. I know that I can only depend on you to make them manifest and come true with your very own mercy, with your very own grace. Oh, my Lord, if you bear witness for me, then maybe I can develop some love for you. But I can only do that with you as my witness, with you as my companion, with you as my friend. Oh, my Lord, please bear witness to my life of love and devotion to you. I hope and pray that Shakshi Gopal bears witness to all your hopes and dreams coming true. He is very merciful to his devotees, and we are now all his devotees. We have heard his story with faith and love. Surely we will attain the lotus feet of that very same sweet Gopal. There is nothing stopping us. Yes, may that same Supreme Gopal bear witness to our devotional service, to our love for him, and may we hear his ankle bells always, as my friend is saying. Thank you so much for that. So this has been the story of the witness. I hope that you have all enjoyed it, and I hope that we have all gained some hope and inspiration for the continuation of our loving devotional service. I look forward to being able to share more stories with all of you, to be with all of you again and again and again, and to be blessed and benedicted by Govinda's own grace and mercy in our lives. It shows up in so many ways, shapes and forms. But we know who the real witness is. So whenever you feel yourself in turmoil and anxiety, feeling stressed out, you can concentrate your mind on the lotus feet of the Lord and say, oh Lord, I need you to bear witness. I need a witness. I need your help. I need your guidance. I need you with me. Hurry from wherever you are. I need your help. And just as Krishna would run from Dwarka to wherever the Pandavas were, even in exile, we can be graced by that same love and mercy. Krishna has that same love for each and every one of you. The divine has that same love for each and every one of you. It is not that the divine loved his pure devotees and that is it. That's not what happens. Our divine best friend has that same amount of overwhelming love for all of us. That love is waiting for you. We just have to claim it. We have to give ourselves. And then Krishna will give himself. He is so reciprocal. He is the epitome of every action. Has an equal and opposite reaction. But with Krishna, it's never equal. We take 1 step, he takes 10. We take 2 steps, he takes 100. So eager he is to be with us and to receive our love. Let us not hold back from him anymore. Let him become the divine witness of all of the abundant love that we have for him in our hearts. Open those doors. Open the floodgates. Let all that love pour forth. Yes, it's scary. Yes, we often feel as though we have been let down so many times. How can we put our faith in loving someone else again? Krishna's not like everyone else. He'll never let us down. And Krishna's love will never, ever fail. He is infallible. He has a name for it. He is Acyuta. So Krishna never fails. He never fails in his love for his devotees. He never fails in fulfilling his promises to his devotees. He never fails in remembering his devotees. And he never falls from his position. Where is his position? Right in the heart. So Acyuta means one who never falls from his position. That position is right within the heart, which means he never leaves. Never forgets. Open the floodgates. Give yourselves permission to trust one more time. And put all that trust in Govinda. Until next time, I can't wait to share another day of exciting adventures with you. Who knows where we'll go next and what we'll do. If there is a crowd favorite, you can send me a message and let me know, and maybe we'll be able to fit it in. But until then, I look forward to being with you all again, sharing with you all, and we'll see what amazing things our best friend will do for us next time. Shri Radhe Govinda Dev ki jai, Shri Sakshi Gopal ki jai, Shri Gaurnitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Hare Krishna.